Hello, Leonardo, and thank you for joining Shoes in Bitcoin.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a great pleasure talking to you today. So our topic is LiquiDEX and something you have started creating and an idea you have started developing. So I would really love to know more about it. So what is it? LiquiDEX, two steps atomic swaps on Liquid.
So, LiquiDEX, in short, it's a project that allow to do something on Liquid in a more efficient and cool way. But let's start from the beginning because I mean, I guess most of the audience doesn't know what Liquid is and what atomic swaps are and why having two steps is actually relevant, and it's something that enable some kind of innovation and some project to build on top of Liquid. So let's start with a quick introduction on myself and what I do. I am currently a contractor at Blockstream, and I'm working on several different projects. I'm part of the team that is maintaining and developing the Blockstream Green wallet. It's a wallet with support for Bitcoin and Liquid, and it has a different feature and a quite complex stack of infrastructure to deliver its service, that is a Bitcoin and Liquid wallet with 2FA, and which is enforced at a protocol level with a multisig. Then I'm also working on some Liquid tooling, and among these tools there is the Blockstream AMP tool that is a service that allows people to issue an asset and then control where that asset is going to, and to eventually prevent that asset to being spent. It has some application, these Blockstream AMPs. For instance, it has the application for securities, for which they require, the issuer is required to control who is actually owning the securities at every point in time due to regulatory reason. But it could also be interesting for other purposes. So let's go next. What is Liquid? So Liquid is the flagship product of Blockstream. It is a settlement network for traders. The target are traders. So let's start from its main use case. We have
sorry for the interruption here. So
yes.
When you say if the target is for traders, you are talking traders like individual contributors or platforms?
Both. The idea is that you can with this kind of technology, you can both use it as a end user and also use it in an automated fashion, because everything is deterministic, and everything has this kind of feature that can be interoperated with other system, more complex. So I mean, I guess both. There is really, it's really up to the users and the implementers of the various services to decide what to provide and which kind of trade-off they want to put in place in order to deliver the better product that better fits their idea of service that they want to offer to users.
Okay, thank you.
So the idea is that we have traders that at the moment rely on exchanges to buy and sell digital assets, such as mainly Bitcoin, but also other cryptocurrencies or stable coin or other digital asset that can be exchanged from different entities. So we have several issues with these kind of exchanges, and with this protocol where people have to interact with each other to perform this operation where they transfer ownership of some of this particular digital asset from one point to another. Many things can go wrong, and the idea of Liquid is to provide a network, a stack of tools that can improve this experience. So to do so, they do not create Liquid does not create a new token from scratch in order to make the platform functional. Instead, they use it's a side chain. So the idea is that no new token is created to run the platform, unlike other cryptocurrencies such as Ethereum. And instead, what is actually happening is that in order for people to receive some native token of the Liquid sidechain, they have to use some real Bitcoin. And this is nice because it does not inflate the monetary supply of Bitcoin, and so in some sense it does not damage the value of Bitcoin.
Okay, so it's a side chain. It's not like Lightning, for example, which is
yeah. The idea is that it's completely separate. It's not. It's built. I mean, some people talk about layer 2, layer 1.5. I don't really understand those, but the idea is that you can put some Bitcoin in this side chain, and there is a trade-off. So your Bitcoin are not real Bitcoin anymore for a certain time span, but on the other end, you have some kind of advantages that you won't otherwise have on the main chain. So these advantages, to start to list them, are that we have more frequent blocks, and these
every minute.
Yes, every minute. This is achieved because we don't have new blocks are not created with proof of work, and instead they are signed by a federation of agents that at the moment are 15 exchanges, but in the near future, hopefully near future, that will be extended to a set of agents that may vary over time, and that will be much more larger with respect to 15. And the fact that we don't have proof of work has two main benefits. First, it allows for faster blocks because it does not have to be relayed among all the networks. They just have to be the one that are signing the blocks must be well connected, and then they can overcome the latency and do blocks much faster. And the other pro is that the variance of the time when the blocks arrive is much lower. For instance, on Bitcoin, due to how the proof of work works, you can have a couple of blocks in 2 minutes if the miner are quite lucky. But it can also happen that in an hour you see no blocks because miners are just unlucky, and this can happen. It can happen with a significant probability, and it has happened before. You can see that by looking at an exchange on a block explorer. You can see that sometimes you see 1 hour with no blocks. Mainly you see that when you're sending a transaction, and then for 1 hour there are no blocks, and so you have to wait quite a lot more. This
and sorry for
very yeah, please go ahead.
But for example, when this thing happens and I have to wait 1 hour for this block where my transaction is supposed to be passed. So, but I have, for example, I know when I'm using Electrum, I can choose the fees that I want to pay based on how fast I would love to have my transaction confirmed. But
Yes.
so these fees, what's going on? So I'm paying these fees, and I wait even more. What's happening?
Yes, but there are also other issues. Suppose you are a trader and you are doing a very big transfer. You are a whale, and you have a lot of coins. So you are doing this trade and you are moving your funds to an exchange, let's say Bitfinex. And what happens is that you are particularly unlucky, and the transaction you made was broadcasted, but then the block does not arrive for 1 hour. What happens is that your transaction, it's there in the mempool. Anyone can see that. Anyone can see that it's going to the Bitfinex address. On Twitter, there are also bots that are saying Whale is depositing many Bitcoins on Bitfinex, and people can react on that information. And for instance, if they already have funds deposited on Bitfinex, they may take advantage of that information to gain on your trade, because big trades at the moment, since the market is not that liquid, will move the market. And so eventually this is quite bad, because it's unreliable when the transaction will happen, and also the amount are explicit, which is quite bad. And this is where confidential transaction it becomes interesting, because with confidential transaction, that is another feature that is present on Liquid. The asset and the amount in the transaction are, unlike Bitcoin, are not explicit. You cannot see that. You can verify that the input and the output sum up, so that no one is creating Bitcoin out of thin air, but you can see that. So eventually, if a trader deposit a large amount of Bitcoin on Bitfinex, no one is going to see that, and no one can take advantage of that information. So it's a big win for the trader, as he or she can do their trade and without revealing that much information.
Okay, so to make a summary of that, what you're saying, Liquid is providing additional privacy via this sidechain, and the fact that the amounts of the transactions are kind of additionally encrypted. And
yes,
we cannot understand. We see only the amount, or
no, you don't see
the amount. You don't see the amount.
You don't see. I mean, you see some cryptographic commitments. I mean, that allows the nodes of the network and every observer of the network to verify that the transaction is correct, in the sense that is sending some asset and the asset in the output sum up with the inputs, so that nothing is created, and you cannot I mean,
not manipulate and just create out of thin air additional assets, additional amounts of anything. So this is something that is secured on the side chain. But with the privacy part, that's what I know from previous conversations with other guests, is that you cannot see the type of the assets.
Yes, also.
Yeah.
One thing that I haven't mentioned yet is that on the side chain, another thing that you can do that you can't do on Bitcoin is issuing any kind of assets. You can issue some asset that may be worthless, but also you can. It's possible to issue. It's possible that some entity will issue some asset and will promise that it will give something back in exchange for that asset. This is the case of the USDT, the Tether. It's a stable coin pegged to the US dollar, created by the Tether company that is controlled by Bitfinex, and that is the most popular stable coin, and it's also on Liquid, can be traded on Liquid as well. So we have both. When you see an output, when you receive an output, you have both an asset and an amount. So it allows you to do nice things, and both of these values that are quite important to remain secret. I mean, secret at least to the sender and the receiver. Of course, they have to know how much they are worth, but they can remain secret to the other parties. And of course, there are systems so that you can reveal those value and prove to other parties that those value are the one that you are saying. I mean, in some sense, it's audit friendly. You can prove to other people that you own that amounts without revealing that to anyone. I mean, you can do a selective reveal in case that is needed for any purpose.
Okay, and for example, is there a kind of an explorer that we can check and see what is the actual usage of the Liquid sidechain, or this is also private?
Yes, you can check it on Blockstream info, and so on Blockstream info you can see the transaction, and normally they will be blinded, but eventually if the sender or the receiver of this blinded transaction is willing to provide you some extra information, you can see that unblinded in the browser. Basically what happens is that it's unblinded client side, and of course that it can also happen that this unblinding is done by some other tooling. For instance, if you think about Blockstream AMP, what's happening is that users are going to exchange these assets, but then there is this issuer that is receiving the information that users are sending it the information so that it can unblind everything and can have a state of where are the assets at any point in time.
Right. Okay, so but Leonardo, so basically Liquid is only for big traders. I mean, for me, for example, like a normal user, I don't need Liquid.
Well, the idea is that it's designed for mainly for traders, but other people can use it. The thing is that to develop this kind of network and all the infrastructure that's necessary to make this network work in production. I mean, something that should be reliable for business to build on. There must be a use case that is strong enough to hold for that. And of course, once that is in place, also other users that eventually do not guarantee strong cash flows for company building this kind of project can use it, because in the end this kind of technology is completely permissionless. For instance, you can do NFT or other kind of tokens on Liquid, but you cannot expect that I mean, a company is investing a lot of resources to build something that is designed specifically for that. So the idea is it's designed for a trader, but eventually it can be used for many other purposes.
Okay, thank you.
So let's go next. So we see that we have different assets on the same side chain that is a blockchain. Also, in practice, it's very similar to Bitcoin because it shares with Bitcoin most of its code base, and so it has the same model for transaction, and for that is the UTXO model. So basically, we have these transaction outputs that can be spent, and when unspent, they become transaction inputs. And each output has associated to it an amount, an asset, and a script up key. The script up key is like the locking puzzle for the output. And in practice, what happens is that most of the time, one person, one entity, one service is able to solve that puzzle. In practice, for instance, let's consider the first input of the transaction we see there, and we see that it holds 0.6 liquid Bitcoin, and the owner is Alice, meaning that Alice is able to spend such UTXO. So,
okay. And when
now,
Alice wants, yeah, please go ahead. Sorry.
So now let's analyze something that we would like to do. So we have two parties. We have Alice and we have Bob. Alice would like to receive some USDT, some dollars, in exchange for her liquid Bitcoin. And on the other hand, Bob wants to do the same. The idea is that they simply want to need the other asset and are willing to give the other in exchange for that.
And sorry, if Alice wants to do so, but Bob does not, if there are no Bobs right now, what?
So if there is no, yeah, the issue now is what happens if there is no Bob. Alice can go to an exchange, send it to the exchange some liquid Bitcoin, and then receive back some USDT. And it's what now it's happening most of the time. But the thing that is not really nice about this kind of protocol is that there are a couple of things that may go wrong. So Alice is sending the liquid Bitcoin to the exchange, but maybe then the exchange does not send the USDT back because it gets hacked, because there are some issue with Alice, and many things can go wrong in that place. Of course, when you are using an exchange, it's kind of fine because the exchange has some reputation that it has to maintain, and it cannot scam users. Otherwise, user will talk among themselves and will stop using the exchange. But also, it can also happen that Alice is going to exchange things. It's going to exchange her liquid Bitcoin for instance, cash. So you will meet with another person at I don't know, at a pub, and they will drink a beer, and at the same time they will do an exchange for some liquid Bitcoin for some cash. But what can happen is that after Alice sent the other guy the liquid Bitcoin, in exchange the other person won't give her the cash, and we run away, and so Alice will have lost her liquid Bitcoin. So to mitigate this stuff, normally people are using some escrow service. So there is another party that is going to hold the funds in between, and will resolve if there is any. If they do not agree, it will resolve according to some pre-specified rules. But this poses a lot of friction, and it's something that requires some trust, either in the exchange in the first case or in the escrow, and that the whole things work nicely. So with Liquid enables a new way to do this this operation in a much safer manner. It can be essentially atomic. So the idea is that Alice and Bob will cooperate to construct a single transaction, and this transaction will change the balance in the wallet of Alice and Bob, so that it will result in the trade that they agreed on. For instance, here we have a transaction, and if this transaction is ever broadcasted and actually becomes part of the Liquid sidechain, after this transaction, Alice will have 0.5 Liquid Bitcoin less and 600 USDT more. And Bob will have the opposite. The nice thing about that, about this transaction, is that it either happens or it doesn't. It can't happen partially. So Alice, if Alice is sending some Liquid Bitcoin to Bob, then she is receiving some USDT in exchange for that. This is what is making the deal atomic, in the sense that it happens or it does not. And this is possible thanks to the multi-asset of Liquid and the UTXO model that Bitcoin has. And the other nice thing is that Alice and Bob do not have to trust each other, and this is particularly nice because so they don't have to meet to settle the deal, and so they can do it purely online, and eventually it could be automated because they don't have to put in place some checks to see that the counterparty is actually trustworthy, because you don't need to trust your counterparty. Was this clear enough?
Yes, thank you very much. I would love to ask you. So first, we have 0.6 liquid Bitcoin that Alice wants to send to Bob. So these 0.6 liquid Bitcoins are corresponding to 0.6 Bitcoins on the main chain, right?
Yes.
Okay. So then why I want this, maybe because I don't really, this is not my subject, I'm not a subject matter expert in that field, and that's why some of my questions may sound a little bit irrelevant to you. So kindly ask you to excuse me about that. So 0.6 LBTC Alice is sending. Why then we have 0.5 liquid BTC to Bob? We have 1,000 automatically tethers to Bob, which is 0.1 liquid BTC change. What is this? Is the fee, or this is
no? So the idea is that so let's see the state of Alice and Bob wallet before. So before the transaction happened, we have the inputs that are unspent, so are belonging to their wallet. So Alice has 0.6 liquid Bitcoin and Bob has 100 USDT. So after the transaction settled, we have the ownership is partially transferred among the two parties. So Alice is willing to send alpha Bitcoin to Bob. So we have the first output that as Bob as a owner, and the asset is LBTC and the amount is 0.5. The remaining LBTC are sent to Alice back. Alice is sending those back to herself.
But so this is by default. You mean that this is the way it works by default? You're just putting randomly here the amounts, and this is the way actually the swap is working. It's always the corresponding amounts based on the initial amount that the user wants to send to the other, and this is always what the swap is doing by default automatically. It's distributing these amounts between both.
So there are no restriction on what a swap should look like and how you should behave. So the idea here is that somehow Alice and Bob agreed to exchange 0.5 liquid Bitcoin for 600 USDT. And then, since they decide that, they construct the transaction in this way. So the amount that you see on the right.
Yeah, you're on mute, by the way.
Yeah, sorry.
No, don't worry.
Sorry. So we have these amounts that are on the right, that they are willing to exchange. So they decide on the rate, on the amount, and then after they decide on that, they will create a transaction that is actually matching what they want to make it happen. And so a transaction may have change or may not have change. And in this particular example, it's a bit simplified because I've completely ignored the fee issue. Okay. And it's not displayed because it would have made things too much complicated. Because it depends. It's not every time straightforward how to understand who is going to pay the fee. It really depends on the protocol. So I think it's a topic that, I mean, maybe should be discussed in another time, let's say. Okay. So the idea is that they want to do a certain kind of exchange. There will be some trade-off, depends on the software they are running, the protocol that they want to run, and each protocol may allow or not allow some kind of operation. And depending on those, the transaction may look like different from their perspective, so the unblinded perspective, but also from the general observer. So things may be a bit different. It really depends on how they agree on that. In the end, if they don't like the transaction, or if they don't think that transaction is actually delivering something that they want to achieve, then it will they simply won't sign the transaction, and it won't happen because it's atomic in the end.
Okay, so, and again, this is only an example, and this can be defined how exactly, based on the protocol, we can, all these conditions are subject to change or to an agreement. It is not required to look exactly like that each and every atomic swap. But this is just an example.
Yes. I mean, it's just to explain how the UTXO model and the presence of multiple assets enables this atomic swap, this feature, this trick, let's say.
This magic. Okay, so here in our particular example, we have Tether and we have liquid Bitcoin.
Yeah, apologies.
So in that particular example, we have Tether and liquid Bitcoin.
Yes.
And you place 0.1 LBTC Alice and 0.5 LBTC Bob just because this is, I mean, I'm not sure how I have to state my question.
Yes. So the idea is that Alice wants to send 0.5 liquid BTC to Bob. So
she doesn't want to send 0.6 LBTC, Alice. She wants to send only 0.5 LBTC.
Yes. So
okay.
she
has remaining 0.1 LBTC on her address.
Yes, as change.
Okay, exchange.
And the same does Bob. Bob does not want to send 1,000 USDT. He wants to send only 600, and so he will send 600 to Alice, and the rest, the remaining part, it will be sent back to himself as a change.
Okay, And basically, this is confidential. It's private. All this information only they know between themselves, and it's not traceable. It's not visible to third parties. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Thank you, Leo. Okay.
So we can go next. So there are some existing implementation. The first one was from Blockstream, the LiquiSwap tool. I helped that. I helped writing that.
You have created it?
I mean, the idea was there, and we had to just implement some tool to do that. It consists in a CLI and a graphical user interface, and it's a 3-step protocol. It's purely peer-to-peer, and it's available there. It's the first one. It's not extremely refined, but it's working in a completely decentralized fashion.
And when
then
was
there is
this created? When was this created?
It was created, I think, a couple of years ago. I should look just to be precise, but more or less a couple of years ago.
Okay. And then we have SideSwap.
Yeah, SideSwap is an app made by a company, and it uses a 3-step approach, and it uses a central server to improve the overall user experience of the overall user experience of the for the users. So there are some, when you do things in a purely decentralized way, there are some tricks. So eventually your counterparty just want to know how much are your UTXO worth, and so it's quite annoying. The idea is that they put a server in the middle that is going to help the two party not to trick each other, and will help them also to find each other, and it will provide some help to find the liquidity to actually settle the swap. Then there is TDEX, that is another 3-step protocol, again peer-to-peer, but here we have they implemented a swap server that people can use to settle the trade and to accept the various the swaps. Finally, we have something that is properly, it's not properly a swap, atomic swap implementation. I mean, it doesn't advertise itself as an atomic swap implementation, but it actually is. It's Liquid Taxi, and is a survey that allows you to pay USDT and receive in exchange some LBTC to pay for the fees. This is a very simple use case. So the idea is that you have a wallet that doesn't have LBTC for some reason, and it will send you USDT in exchange for LBTC. But this will be completely unblinded, so eventually it's not ideal, because Liquid also allow for unblinded output at the moment. So we have this implementation. The annoying things about
I've had a conversation with Wolfgang.
Yeah.
We talked about Liquid Taxi. Marco has shown to me how it's working. Yeah. So, and the idea is, so you say this is not actually, because it's unblinded and it's two steps only: pay USDT and get LBTC to pay for fees. So this is something that again is happening automatically. If I remember properly, it's like a plugin for websites. You can install it additionally. It's again on this methodology it's working. Okay, and then now we have your
So the annoying things about the 3-step is that the UX for user it's not really ideal. So suppose I want to do an exchange with a 3-step protocol. I propose the exchange, I did the trade, the swap. Then the other party will say, yes, I'm accepting the swap, and will perform some action to partially complete that. And finally, I have to be online, I have to receive that and finalize the trade. This is quite annoying because
you cannot do it. I mean, you are dependent.
Yes, I have to be dependent to find someone that is willing to accept the trade, and then he or she has to wait for me to go back online, because eventually, I mean, I'm not staying online all the time, and I have to go back online and actually finalize the trade. And there are several things that may go wrong in this period. For instance, if too much time passes by, eventually the trade is not anymore profitable for one of the two parties, and so it can abort the protocol in several different ways. So it's really annoying, and it's also harder to implement in a secure way, because it's more complex, and the more complex things are, the easier is to implement that in an unsafe way. And it's also much harder to integrate them in other services that maybe would like to have some kind of this kind of atomic swap, but are not willing to accept a higher degree of complication to integrate them. So this is where LiquiDEX come into place. So I think last year Riccardo Casatta had the idea, and we briefly discussed it. So and he was convinced that we could do atomic swap with only 2 steps. That would be much nicer for different reasons. So from a technical point of view,
eliminating this obstacle you have shared previously with me, that we have to wait for the other person to be online to
yes, and also there are less chances for the various party to behave in a malicious way, because there is less interaction among them. So it's nice because LiquiDEX in the end, it's similar to Liquid Taxi, but it's completely blinded. It's a 2-step protocol, and it's purely peer-to-peer. So
it's when we think blinded, okay, yeah, because Liquid Taxi it was unblinded, okay.
Yes. So the nice thing is that the 2-step protocol makes the UX very similar to send transaction. So what happened when, for instance, I have to receive a payment on Liquid or on Bitcoin, I will give my address to someone else, and then I will wait for him to pay. And I don't have to be online to receive the payment. I mean, I have to be online to actually assess that I have received the payment, but I don't have to be online for him to send me the funds. And this makes the UX completely equivalent with respect to send transaction. So, and also when I'm giving my address to someone else, then I'm hoping that he or she will actually send me the money, because eventually it won't happen. And so the idea is very similar. Now, instead of giving an address, you give a proposal that in the end is a partially signed elements transaction, and another counterparty eventually, maybe mainly if he finds the proposal profitable to him, he will complete the proposal, settle the proposal, and settle the swap on the Liquid network. And so this does not require me to be online or to cooperate with him after I did the proposal.
Okay, but
yes,
I'm trying to understand. Your process with this LiquiDEX more or less is something that makes it easier. It eliminates one of the 3 steps, which is kind of a very big time and process optimization. And as far as I understood, you are providing as cons, as positives, the fact that we don't we are not dependent on the other party. But why the other projects are with 3 steps and we are making 2 steps here? I'm just trying to understand because when technically something is possible to be done, I don't understand why other people are making 3 steps instead of 2 steps. You know, I'm just confused.
So 3-step is easier to implement because there are some technical difficulties that makes LiquiDEX. I mean, there are a couple of trade-offs that I think are acceptable, but there are also some technical difficulties to implement that in a secure way and in a way that is actually interoperable with other systems. I mean, mainly interoperable with a liquid node. You require, at the moment, you require custom software to operate with and you cannot operate with a liquid node. So I think that at the moment, those services, I mean, those services that want to push this atomic swap in production, maybe should wait a bit more to integrate LiquiDEX, since there are a couple of steps that still need to happen in order to make it completely ready to integrate in a production environment. That said, it's ready to be. I mean, it won't change much. It will change some technical details, and which are meaningful for implementers because they add complexity and maintenance costs, but they are not that they're not that meaningful for I mean, from a UX perspective. The idea is that at the moment it works. No need to wait to start integrating that. If you want to push that to users, then eventually you want to wait a bit more because you don't want to expose a user to some technical annoyances. Since I think there is a slide, maybe I will talk about this in a couple of slides, because once a couple of events occur, then eventually it will be very easy to integrate these. You won't need custom stuff, custom software that at the moment is needed. And the reason why these custom code and path are needed is the reason why they haven't implemented yet. They stick to the 3-step. Three step.
Got it. Thank you. And what is a single hash anyone can pay? SIG hash, single hash anyone can pay. What is this one?
So the SIG hash anyone can pay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the trick, the technical trick that is used to partially sign the transaction. So the idea is the first one, the maker of the proposal, will create the transaction, will put its inputs and its outputs, but it doesn't know the other parties' inputs and outputs. It cannot know that in advance. So we have to find a way so that it can sign its input, because he is the only one who is able to sign them, before knowing the rest of the transaction. So the idea is that it will sign only a part of the transaction with that trick, and when it provides the transaction to the other party does not need to interact with the maker, the first one, to complete the transaction. This is the basic idea. It's a very simple idea, but it has powerful consequences. I mean, yeah. So we can see some things that it enables. So you can use that. We'll see a bunch of them. So, for instance, you can sell assets on liquid assets in an automatic fashion. So let's make an example. A couple of weeks ago, on the Blockstream store, Blockstream sold some liquid assets that were representing the right to buy a jade. Yeah, so you buy for I don't remember how much, maybe $50, one of these token, and then you have the right to buy a jade afterwards on before others, or you have access to the first batches of the new order wallet. So what could have been done is that they could have created some proposal that were swapping the single token for some USDT, and in that way they can sell their token in an atomic way, in an atomic fashion, without relying on any interaction with the customer. The customer simply completes the swap, Blockstream receives the USDT, and the customer receives the liquid asset he paid for. So this is an idea that this is something that can use LiquiDEX as a building block.
Yeah. Okay.
Another way, another option, another things that can be done is creating some kind of automated OTC desks. So as a trader, I'd like to find liquidity to settle my trades, my swaps, and so I may rely on a centralized counterparty. And this centralized, I'm paying a bit to this centralized counterparty, an OTC desk that is helping me to find liquidity to settle my trades, my swap, to find someone that actually is willing to do the opposite trade with respect to what I want to do. So LiquiDEX can be used to automatize this process, and eventually you can do something that does not require human interaction at all. So for instance, I pay a fee every month to access this service, and then I do proposal to do any kind of exchange, and the service on their side, they will find other proposal and they will match all together, and they will take care of making sure that I can find enough matches, and that can be completely automated, and it's something nice because it allows people to trust less these counterparties, and because at no point in time the OTC desk is holding the client money, which is quite nice with respect to what is happening today. So another thing that can be implemented is going a step further with respect to this implementation that has some advantages, but as the main disadvantage is that this OTC desk is a centralized point of failure, and eventually can be shut down for several reasons. And on the other end, there is this service, this peer-to-peer network that are decentralized exchange. So basically, it's a group of agents that want to exchange within itself proposal of swaps, and these can happen in a completely decentralized fashion. So there is no central party that is delivering, that is organizing these exchanges, and it would consist mainly in a decentralized order book, and this order book would consist in LiquiDEX proposal. So the idea is that as a peer, I would create some proposal and send it to my other peers, and also I would receive some proposal from other peers. I eventually consider to match them, and otherwise I would simply relay them to the other peers, so that the proposal get relayed in a completely decentralized fashion on top of Liquid. So these are some of the things. Of course, there is much more. There are other things that can be done. Can use LiquiDEX as a building block, and but these are some of the things that are much more easy with a two-step protocol rather than a three-step protocol.
Yeah. So, and you're saying that the LiquiDEX idea, more or less, is going to be it's going to be implemented by the majority of the exchanges sooner or later, step by step?
Well, yeah, it depends. Of course, if an exchange is implementing Liquid, eventually is going to consider this building block to make their service more decentralized and more automated. And I mean, it will allow them to set up a service that requires less maintenance. So it should be a win for them.
Yeah, it will be a big optimization if everything is automated. Okay, so and okay, these two steps swap, because I think this is the biggest benefit or the biggest plus of LiquiDEX comparing it to the other similar solutions on Liquid. So you're saying that the rest of the technicians and the developers who are working on developing on Liquid and adjusting their platforms to work, accept, and transact with Liquid assets, they're going sooner or later to make everything with less steps. I mean, so does it mean that everything will be LiquiDEX in a while?
Yeah, it depends, because there are some trade-offs that eventually they don't want to. I mean, some compromise may be fine for some services, while they may not be okay for others. The two main cons that I didn't mention before are the fact that the proposal are of fixed sides, so you cannot have a change output, unlike the initial transaction I pointed out before. The idea is you swap an entire UTXO. So eventually you have one Bitcoin in a single UTXO, you have to swap that entirely. Or otherwise you have to do another transaction that is going to split the UTXO in two smaller UTXO of the size that you want. This, it's fine, but some application may not find it acceptable for them.
Okay, so it's based on the demands and on that what they're targeting as services and functionalities on their platform.
Yes. The other thing that is a bit annoying is that the Sigash single, Sigash anyone can pay, it's actually visible in the transaction, so you lose some kind of anonymity, unlike the original LiquidSwap proposal, the LiquidSwap tool that has one step more, but in the end the transaction really looks like any other transaction, so it's more anonymous. It really depends, because sometimes you are dealing with a service that is always online, so doing the 3-step is fine, because you are the one doing the second step, so the other party will always be online and should be fine. But in most other cases you are not, and especially if you want to do something that is peer-to-peer, you have to assume that your peers are reliable and are not you cannot assume that they will be online when you want. Eventually they are reliable, but they could also be malicious. So I mean, having a more simple protocol, it's definitely a win. I mean, for several use cases, maybe not all of them, of course, but I mean.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you for this information.
So just a couple of slides more. So this was discussed a bit before. There is a fully functional prototype that is actually working. Is an Electrum wallet for Liquid that has LiquiDEX support. It's fully functional, can be tried today. It's quite fast because you don't have to sync a node. It's just an Electrum wallet which relies on the Electrum server exposed by Explorer, by Blockstream. And then the other two steps that I was mentioning that are kind of required to integrate LiquiDEX in a production app. With PSET, you won't have anymore to rely on a custom format for the data that's exchanged.
What does PSET mean? Sorry.
Partially signed elements transaction is the elements version of PSBT, partially signed Bitcoin transaction, and it's a format that allows wallets to interoperate in a nicer way among each other or among the various components. For instance, from the host to the other wallet, mainly that was the main use case, but also from various parties in a multi-sig or in a transaction that is constructed by different users. So
I've never talked to anyone about elements.
Yeah, elements is liquid. I mean, liquid is the production network that is actually working right now, and the elements is like the software that liquid runs. I mean, with elements, you could run another liquid instance. You can create another liquid clone or liquid clone with different features. But the idea is that elements and liquid are kind of synonym at the moment, because liquid is the production version of elements. Okay, let's say.
Liquid is based on a software called Elements.
Yes.
Okay. Grazie.
So the other thing is that once I think soon we should have an hard fork that will introduce a new. Yes, okay. Yes. On liquid, hard fork are much more safe because there is this centralized mining is not distributed. There is this federation, so it's easier to introduce new things and to upgrade faster because the chain cannot split as long as all the block signer are not are on the same. I mean, run the same software. They cannot split. So it is another advantage of having a federated sidechain is that this kind of innovation are much more easy because.
Can we check, for example, right now how many liquid nodes are being synced in this particular moment, or we assume only from the website of Blockstream when we look at the federation list that these are all the entities that are running there.
Yeah, so on Liquid you have different entities because you have the block signer that are the one that are actually creating and signing the new blocks, but there are also a lot of other nodes that are validating that everything is proceeding as they would expect, and there are also several other pieces of software that ensure that everything works in the appropriate way, in a way that is production ready, production proof, let's say. Okay. So once we will have that fork, there will be a new feature that will allow to remove a quite nasty hack that there is at the moment on B wallet CLI, and once that is there,
it will be
Liquid Wallet won't be required to do crazy things. They will be required to do, slightly complicated transaction construction, but not that much. I think something that can be achieved by any Liquid Wallet developer in a very reasonable amount of time. So once that is there,
let's say.
Yes, okay. It would be also safer for user because it won't require a more complex backup, and that I think this is the main reason why I think it's reasonable to wait a bit for that.
Okay, this is also the reason you're waiting with the progress of LiquiDEX, or there is.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the progress on LiquiDEX because it's a side project of mine. So I don't have that much time. for my side projects.
Unfortunately, I wish you to have more time for your personal projects. Okay, and integration in production services. Once this is being released, it's going to be integrated, and it's going to facilitate and make easier the job of the Liquid software developers who are willing to integrate it on their platform. Great.
Yeah. So just the last slide. So there are some resources. I mean, nothing crazy. There is, I mean, some resources about Liquid if you want to understand more about how it works, its trade-off, and so on. Then there is a quite detailed technical blog post about LiquiDEX, and also the first prototype of LiquiDEX that we have been developing in the last month, and a couple of iterations, quite interesting if you want to understand that. And finally, there is a LiquiDEX.it that was set up by Valerio, that was hosted here a couple of times, and it's a website where you can upload your LiquiDEX swap proposal, and also collect the one from the other, and eventually complete them and swap them. So
great. So this is something that the LiquiDEX.it, I have already had a look at it, but I'm going, if you wish, you can also open the website, or if you decide to open any of those.
Yeah, no, I'm from my phone, so okay. I don't think it will open.
Just leave it as is. But I'm sure all the software developers who are going to watch this video, so the sites are up and running, so they can check all these details. And your personal contacts, maybe, are you open for any inquiries from your peers and people?
Yeah, I mean, I
share
think
knowledge with you.
It's on the first page, just my name and surname.
Okay, and you are where?
At Gmail. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and GitHub mainly.
Okay. On Twitter and GitHub. Yeah, GitHub is, I love it. On GitHub, you can understand, because on Twitter, everybody is talking a lot, but when you open GitHub, actually you see, you see the real work of the people and what stands behind their words. So Leonardo Comandini at gmail.com. And in Twitter, your...
yeah, it's Leo Comandini.
Leo Comandini. Okay, Leo. Thank you very much for this nice conversation and the knowledge that you have shared with me. For sure, there are things that me as an individual, non-technical contributor, I cannot completely assimilate and correlate and turn into a practical scenario in my life for now. But who knows? Maybe one day I can be also a software developer and we'll be creating assets on Liquid. Why not? Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for hosting me.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.